Welcome to the Amazon's podcast. I'm Glenn Young, owner of Amazon's fitness magazine, Celebrate the Female Physique. Subscribe to amazonsfitmag.com. The podcast is brought to you by GPS Photography and Video. Why photography and video? Because a photo's worth 1,000 words, video's worth 1,000,000. GPSphotoandvideo.com. My guest, IFBB women's bodybuilder, Olympian, Sheena Ohlig, back on the podcast. Haven't seen you in a minute, but been watching. We've been talking back and forth. And so thanks again for coming back on.
Thanks for having me, Glenn. It's always a pleasure.
I mean, when you look at it and the overall what's been going on this year, every year it takes on its different tale.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. But it seems like we're always talking about the same subjects. Not enough shows, women bodybuilders not showing up, sanction fees, prize money. Started out once again with Andrea Shaw's show, the Triple O on fire, $10,000 in prize money. And since then, it's like we are where we were last year going into the Atlanta Pro.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of a different landscape this year to a degree, just because of, I think, the responsiveness of a lot of us women bodybuilders, answering the call to show up and trying to fight back against this narrative that has been put out that women's bodybuilders just don't show up. Women bodybuilders just or don't put themselves out there. Women bodybuilders just, they don't want to put their faces out there. And I think that's a negative and not so accurate narrative, namely because obviously women's bodybuilding is very different from a lot of the other categories. I think that it's very layered, very textured. So I think that there's some considerations that need to be made there. And also, when you've experienced some disenfranchisement, you're a little pessimistic, to say the least, about what the year will look like. And you, as competitors, we have learned to kind of protect our necks. You know what I mean? We got to have our own back. So it's like, if I have to be a little stingy with my time because I don't know what shows are going to be on, pulled off, yanked at the last minute, prize money change, circumstances changes. If I don't know and I sort of have to be always on my toes and, ready to pivot, then as a competitor, it only makes sense that you have to try to be very strategic about the way that you plan your year. This year was my first year doing the Triple O Dynasty, Andrea Shaw's show, Andrea and Sid show. And I've always wanted to do that show. Like since I heard about them talking about it, I was like, I'm definitely going to do that show at some point. I'm going to do that show. In the years past, it just never worked out with the alignment of my schedule with where I was in life and time and planning, all of it, right? So this year it just so happened to work out. I actually wasn't planning on doing the show because of how my prep had rolled out. We started my prep in October, November, still dealing with some things, but that February or that April, that first weekend of April just wasn't looking like, it was going to be a guarantee. And when we started hearing a lot of the blowback against, women not doing the show, or they only had 3 competitors last year, or they only had 5.
Right.
There was a call to action that was made amongst us women's bodybuilders. We have a chat set up. I'm sure people have probably heard of it at this point. We have a group chat. It's 70 plus women's bodybuilders in there. And we kind of really are just holding each other accountable, lifting each other up, sharing victories, sharing challenges, encouraging one another. And so the call to action really was put out there to say, hey, we need to show up for Andrea Shaw's show. For Andrea's show, if nothing else, we got to show for this show. I know everybody hadn't already planned on doing it, or it just wasn't in the timeline for some people, but we got to do it. So I pulled the trigger and I did it. I was happy with the show. The experience was great. It wasn't my best showing in terms of my physique, but I think it gave me a little momentum. It gave me a little momentum to be ready for the next show, which was Toronto. And that was the one that I had planned. I had planned on doing New York. That's really what I had planned on doing last year. I had planned on doing New York. So you see how that goes, right?
So that was right in your backyard, and then
it's right there. It's literally an hour up the street. It's like not even in
Yeah.
New York. Like, even though they call it the New York Pro,
Right.
it's in Teaneck, New Jersey, which is North Jersey.
Yeah.
So I definitely was going to do that. And then lo and behold, last minute we hear, man, they pulled it out. They're not going to do women's bodybuilding. So, you know, that was a gut check. And he was like, okay, what's after that? Literally a whole month goes before another show is on the roster, which is Toronto. So
yeah,
that's what we're dealing with. But I think a lot of us female bodybuilders, we're making, you know, we're rising to the occasion. Anastasia, you know, she spearheaded the effort to get, you know, Tim Gardner to put women's bodybuilding back on at Tampa. She did the GoFundMe page. A lot of our fans and followers and supporters, sponsors, a lot of people, like, you know, supported that, you know, gave out of their own pockets to put women's bodybuilding, you know, on the roster. And it's like, that was I think that was the sanction fee. I think, you know, because as promoters, they have to pay the IFBB basically like a licensing fee to use or to host each division. So I mean, that's a conversation probably for a whole other episode. We could probably spend a whole episode talking about the business of bodybuilding. But yeah, so there's a lot of us that are just rising to the occasion and stepping out. So I think, especially with the showing at Toronto, I think we had an amazing group of women show up for Toronto. And that really could be the vibe of all these shows, if that's the kind of, you know, support and promotion we're getting, because Toronto Pro was promoting women's bodybuilding. Toronto Pro was amplifying and highlighting all of the divisions. It wasn't just like, oh, open men's bodybuilding and classic physique and bikini, and then everybody else is just, you know, chopped liver. It's like, you know, every now and then on their social media, they're amplifying, they're highlighting the women who's going to be competing. So, you know, I think that's all we're really asking for is, you know, a little bit more attention and promotion from the promoters, you know, to really invest in the product, right? Like, we as bodybuilders, if you think about it from a business perspective, we are the product. The women bodybuilders, the bikini competitors, the wellness, like the people, the human bodies going on stage, that really is the product. And then as a promoter, you get to use that product to, like, you know, that's like dangling the carrot in front of all of the vendors and the sponsors and the people who are endorsing the show. They want to get their product in front of people who are going to be looking for these athletes. So I think that there's a lot that needs to happen in order to streamline things. But if we could have the same kind of promotion and attention and endorsement that we had at Toronto Pro, you know, with them really promoting the show and really promoting the division, I think that's what a lot of the shows will look like. You know, I think women just, unfortunately, we have to be strategic. We have to be financial. There's a lot of expenses that go into it. So, and that's across the board. I get it. That's, you know, for every division, but we face a unique conundrum, I would say, as women bodybuilders, because I think at where we're at on the spectrum, you know, some people might think, you know, it's not marketable or not, you know, it's hard to market, or it's not what the average public wants to see. So I think there's a lot that goes into it. But when we can't guarantee like a $5,000 prize, like first place prize, like if you're literally splitting $3,000 between the top three placers, like that's literally not even enough to cover my expenses just traveling to your show.
Right.
And that's only if I'm really confident that I'm going to finish in the top three.
You have some ladies who know. How much was the flight to Toronto?
$800, easy.
So,
and that's before you add bags or priority boarding or selecting a seat, because I refuse to get stuck, and you know, on the inside seat when I'm drying out and I got to go to the bathroom 3 times on the flight. So
yeah. And the thing of it is like, you know, what's the fix? How much of a conversation, you talk about, y'all were all in the chat, how much of a conversation did y'all have to the promoters? And specifically, how much of a conversation did you guys have with the male promoters?
I can't speak to that directly regarding, and I'll just use Anastasia as an example. She was the one that kind of spearheaded that effort with Tim. And I know that she had a couple of conversations with him, and they may have just literally been digital conversations, like via direct message or email or text. You know, but I never sat down with Tim. It's not like he doesn't have a responsibility to me specifically, but I never got a chance to sit down and talk to him, you know, but I would like a conversation just out of curiosity, just out
Mm-hmm.
of, wanting to know sort of the geography of this. As somebody who intends on being part of the media landscape, especially once I'm done competing, bringing everybody women's
Right.
bodybuilding, bringing our stories amplified in our voices. I think that it's important that I can sit with the promoters, and they typically have like an open door policy, so it's not like
Right.
I've tried and they're not getting back to me. It's just that's not where I'm
Mm-hmm.
at right now. That's not where I've taken it, even in just these last handful of months. However, I did actually have a long conversation with Jake Wood when I was at the
Okay.
Triple O Dynasty, and I won't get into the details specifically of it,
Mm-hmm.
but he pulled me aside and wanted to have a conversation about the state of women's bodybuilding. This is when
Right.
Olympia TV had done their episode. This is
Right.
when Andrea and Sid were online, and they were doing like lives talking about the show and then just talking about the state of women's bodybuilding. So lots of conversations have been swirling about women's bodybuilding and the state of women's bodybuilding,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think anybody really has sat down with, let's just say, a round table of athletes, the current competitors,
Right.
the promoters, right? The men promoters, right? The old
Right.
school OG promoters like a Tim Gardner,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the new school promoters like an Andrea Shaw and Sid Gillen, and they're female promoters, and they're title holders, so they have a very
Right.
unique perspective on the show and sort of the geography of women's bodybuilding. But the conversation was
Mm-hmm.
really, I think it was a positive conversation. I think I got a lot of insight from how Jake is feeling about women's bodybuilding, about some of the
Good.
concerns that promoters have about women's bodybuilding. But I'm just a little bit more hard nosed than just being like, oh, we just want the best for women's bodybuilding. We want them to be
Mm-hmm.
safe and we want them to be healthy. You can't make that decision for us.
No.
Right? You can't make that decision for us. We're bodybuilders, competitors, just like every other division. You can't make that decision for the open guys, for the 212 guys,
Mm-hmm.
for the wellness girls, nothing. So if nothing else, I think we deserve to have, if not equal, at least on par with number of shows hosted in a year.
Right.
I brought up the topic, or I don't want to say topic, but I brought up the factor of the fact that we all pay, we all pay our dues, right? As bodybuilders, as pros, we all pay
Mm-hmm.
our dues year in, year out. 250, 270. I mean, they started out at 100, then it was like 125, now it's 175, now
For
it's
the pro card.
200, 250, I think this year is 275, right? And I'm just,
Yeah. For the
if
pro
I'm
card.
paying the same $275 dues for my pro card, how am I not given the same opportunity throughout the year to compete?
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying $275 for 10 shows versus somebody paying $275 for their pro card and they have 30, 40, 60 shows to choose from. How is that fair? Now, listen, I understand it's
Mm-hmm.
business. It's not always about being fair. But if we're talking dollars and cents, then the math's got to start mathing.
Right.
As the league, right? If you're charging me a certain amount of dues, then you have a responsibility to put those dues to work for me because I'm paying you to run the league, right? And I'm paying for
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity to hold that pro title. Like, what else are those dues going to? Anybody who pays dues knows that it's really for operational costs, expenses, things like that, right?
Right.
So then we need to be at least promised something, if not exactly the same amount of shows, equitable. I mean, it's got to be on par. If we're not going to have 30 shows, it has to be like a bare minimum. I would even
Mm-hmm.
promote or suggest a bare minimum number of shows to be put on, or to be included. If you're going to be a promoter, right, and you're going to promote one show, then you got to have
Mm-hmm.
all of the divisions. If you're going to promote multiple shows, then maybe you get one or two that doesn't have a couple of divisions. Maybe you want to make one show all bikini, or one show all women, or one show all men. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it has to be some sort of balance. If you're going to do two shows, then at least one of them has to have all the divisions. You know what I mean? Or between the two shows, you have to host, all of them. I feel like there needs to be a standard for the promoters, a standard for the judges, across the board. If the league is going to do this, where they're charging people money to use their licenses and sanction fees and things like that, I think that there's got to be some sort of standard created.
Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly not trying to gaslight you, but I do consider myself an investor as a fan and with the magazine to provide a platform and obviously get all y'all in the magazine as
Yeah.
well. When you look at the promoters, I mean, and of course, it's not all about Tim Gardner, but I think Shannon Day with Girl Power. I
Mm-hmm.
went to that, um, women's bodybuilding wasn't there. And when you look at having the conversation with promoters, it needs to happen because we're having the same conversation we did last year. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
actually 10 shows this year. And it would seem that the overseas promoters seem to promote women's bodybuilding more than in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where you talk about Toronto, you talk about Alina Popa coming up. Spain just happened, but still, it's hard to get to overseas, and so you can always compensate why the numbers are small there because no one can get over there,
Mm-hmm.
uh, especially with the cost of gas this year. And we
Mm-hmm.
talk about what the fix is, and it's good to know that conversations are being had. Maybe that's just a continuing point. It's not something that needs to be in an open forum or on a podcast or anything like that. But
Mm-hmm.
the conversation need to keep happening. So that's good that you were able to talk to Jake Wood, um, and you just come off as it is. Ideally, you like to have all seven women's divisions in any given show. Not possible. And you look at what brings in money. I get that. Where the guys are paid more versus the women, and then even some of the guys are not paid as much as the open, and so
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's really a happy medium. But if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where we are. But when you look at the other promoters, and not to mention Tim Gardner, because everybody throws his name up because women's bodybuilding was at the Chicago Pro, and
Mm-hmm.
at one point it wasn't going to be at the Tampa. But every summer you look for that. Okay, you got Chicago, Tampa, and then of course Atlanta with Linda Murray. So that gauntlet, you know,
Exactly.
around
Yeah,
every,
it's literally like the like a triple crown, right? Like
it is
you want to go
exactly.
for
Yep,
and and
Chicago,
that's
Tampa,
really
Atlanta. Yeah.
right. And that's really what we as competitors look at, right? A lot of
Hmm.
the top tier competitors are going to look at that gauntlet in the middle of the summer because it gives them
Yep.
time to prep. It gives them time to rebound off of the previous year, especially if you're talking about girls who have made it to the Olympia and they're still
Right.
in prep and they're still prepping um, and competing and on stage in September, October, even November, because we had that show, was it the Titans last year, and
Hmm.
then the other show that they just added women's bodybuilding to
In Vegas.
in
Yeah,
Vegas.
yeah, I forget the guy's name. Kasich, something like.
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. But
It
yeah,
was in
so
November. Yeah.
you have it to where women are competing late in the year, so you need some time to rebound, to reverse out of the show,
Hmm.
and then actually prep for the next season, right? So if you're rebounding,
Right.
let's just be really, really conservative with it. You give yourself a 2 to 3 week rebound reverse, and that's if you go right into it, right? So
Hmm.
let's just say November was your last show, or even October, the Olympia was your last show. November, December, that's sort of like your reverse, your rebound. January,
Hmm.
February, March, you're already in it. You really don't have time to like improve, no improvement season. Like you're literally jumping right back into, you know,
Right.
shredding down for a show, getting stage lean. January, February, March. Now April is the triple O, and that's if you're playing it really, really, really tight. So
Right.
that's why most women, right, were not doing the triple O dynasty. They weren't doing the April show. If you were
Hmm.
ready to do the New York Pro in May, that was by a very, very slim, thin, slice or the skin of your teeth.
Hmm.
I don't know if I said that right, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we learned that it's not there. So then okay, now we have a whole month, and now it's
Hmm.
the Toronto. So like that May June mark is really where girls, like the majority of us active competitors, are pulling the trigger, right? So then
Right.
now it's like, okay, I'm ready for July Chicago show, right? By April,
Hmm.
I'm pulling that trigger. I may not be stage ready, but I'm pulling that trigger. And now we are deep into prep. April,
Yeah.
May, June. Okay, Chicago's coming up in July. Tampa's coming up the first week of August. Atlanta's right after that. Like I got those three shows
Yep.
back to back to back.
And then the Olympia is eked up into the last week of September, September
So you have a
24th.
nice little
Yeah.
break. But to take those shows out of it as a
Mm-hmm.
way, and this is an assumption, so allegedly, I'm not going to say this,
Mm-hmm.
hypothetically speaking, what I imagine was in the promoters' minds was not only, save themselves some money by not having to pay the sanction fees, but
Mm-hmm.
also force the women to do the earlier shows. If I'm not putting women's bodybuilding in Chicago and Tampa, that means they don't have that July,
Right.
August to bank on. We force them into the mix early on.
Right.
But a big argument was that, oh, the women bodybuilders are showing up and they're like less, they're less than par. They're not showing up in good condition. They're not showing up in good
Right.
shape. So you want to rush a prep and rush them in to doing a show that they're not fully prepared for, that they hadn't already like strategized into the plan, into the
Mm-hmm.
into the into the calendar. So I just feel
Mm-hmm.
like there were a lot of decisions that were made outside of the consideration of what was best really for the bodybuilders. And even when it comes down to business, and y'all, I mean, listen, don't fight me in the comments. You know what I'm saying? I
Mm-hmm.
don't want no smoke. And I do want the smoke. I know how to fight, so I'm not really worried about it. But when you think about it from a business perspective, and you know what, maybe my business school intelligence education, book smarts is outdated. But when you think about the business side of it, and you're promoting a show, it would only
Mm-hmm.
make sense in my mind, right? I'm not a promoter, so I don't have that experience, but it would make sense in my mind that when you are promoting your show and you are selling the sponsorships and you're selling the media kits and you're selling the opportunities to be, have your marketing or your logo on the backdrop or on
Mm-hmm.
the tickets or whatever the case may be, however you're setting up your sponsorship packages, it would only make sense that you don't let sponsors or people who are investing piecemeal where their money is going to. And I've heard that
Mm-hmm.
this is the case with a lot of promoters. The case is
Mm-hmm.
that in order to get the sponsors, in order to like close the deal, they're letting the sponsors pick where their money goes to.
So the
From a
sponsors
business,
are literally saying, "Hey, I want my money to go to wellness.
that's it.
I
I
don't
just
want
I,
my
I'm
money to
I'm
go."
I'm just
Mhm.
doing wellness. I'm giving you
Right.
$10,000, or I'm giving you $5,000, but I only want it to go to wellness, or I only want it to go to men's physique, or I only want it to go to
Right.
pain. Me personally, if I'm a promoter, I'm sorry, you don't get to ear tag where that money goes to. Now, if you want
Yeah.
to do a special sponsorship, you know, directed at your unique category, cool. But like
Mm-hmm.
for the sponsorship packages, it should be across the board because I'm promoting the show. I'm not promoting a particular division. And I think unfortunately
Right.
that's a lot of the promoters have allowed, some static in and some I guess operations that don't really make a whole lot of sense for
Mm-hmm.
for consistency. Um, either they're not catching it or they're just worried about just closing the deal and they're ready to take whatever. But I think
Mm-hmm.
personally, if we're talking business, you want to be a sponsor of my show, these are your levels. I decide where that money goes because I'm putting on a promotion, I'm putting on a
Right.
production. I'm not just promoting wellness. I'm not just promoting bikini or fit model, right?
Exactly.
I have to finance this whole production, the lights, the videography, the media, the music, the
Mm-hmm.
the renting it out from the hotel, like all of the stuff, the insurances, like I'm putting all that money to that. So to allow one particular brand to be like, oh well, I'm only putting my money towards this. All right, you can put your money towards that, but
Mm-hmm.
your fee as a sponsor, if this is the level you're at, this is the level you're at. If you want to put an additional
Right.
2,000 to the prize money, or you want to I don't know, brand some T-shirts and put it only for wellness, cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Personally, I think that's one of the things that needs to be streamlined a little bit better, and I think that you would get a little bit more consistency at the shows for the divisions. There's a whole lot more that could be said, but I think that's definitely one area.
So you're really down to, as a sponsor, do I sponsor the show or do I individually sponsor the athlete? Because I can't do both.
Right.
And then come to the show and get that $400 VIP ticket, um, such as the Arnold, such as the Olympia. Olympia is probably a
Hmm.
whole lot more now. But you top tier shows, but then like on the other levels, you maybe 250, roughly, for that VIP ticket because you want to be up front to see your favorite competitor.
Right.
And so, what do you do? I mean, those that have it can give it, but will they? And those that don't have it, yeah, you can support and say what you can, but is everyone doing what they can?
Hmm.
And with everything that I've gone through this year, it was sort of tough. But I mean, what got me was, I mean, you literally got women's bodybuilding out there panhandling uh, to get funds to get a show sponsored in a show, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, so
That's and I feel like that's unfortunate. I feel like it's twofold, right? I feel like
yeah,
it speaks to the resiliency of us as competitors, and refusing
hmm
to go quietly into the night and doing whatever
no,
we got to do to make it happen, because
hmm
we do love the sport and we're doing it for the love of the sport, which a lot of people, throughout there also in their arguments, like, yo, y'all should just be showing up for the love of the sport. Yeah, the love of the sport
hmm
don't pay bills. I'm sorry. Like, let's
that's
be
true.
real about it. Let's be real
That's
about it.
true.
Even back in the day, 80s and 90s, like, listen, I know women weren't, I know women in general haven't had it easy getting promoted, but there was a certain structure back in the day, even with um, the pro league and
hmm
the higher ups, and they would have certain competitors on contract, right? So
hmm
if I'm a, I don't know, Sean Ray, if I'm a Kevin Lavroni, right? Like, I'm already on contract with the Weeders, right?
Right.
I'm getting monthly stipends. I'm getting, yes, I have responsibilities. I got to show up at a certain amount of shows. I got to do a certain amount of,
hmm
like, appearances, but like, that was from the league level, right? That
hmm
structure from the league level, you were getting money. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure if Linda was in that or Iris Kyle was in
hmm
that. I think it was off the books by the time Iris came around. But like Linda Murray and all them, like Kim Shizevsky, like back in the day, the structure was, okay, you're on contract and you
hmm
have to do a certain amount of shows, you have to get a certain amount of money each month, et cetera, different sponsors, magazine covers, etc. It's not like that anymore. So to tell an athlete now you should just show up for the love of it because you want to promote women's bodybuilding, it's $800 to get to Toronto. It's $600
yeah.
to get to Atlanta. It's $600. Well,
Right.
like $300, $400 to get to Atlanta. $600, $700 to get to Vegas, just flight.
Yeah.
Then you're talking about accommodations and your car and your food. Like, everybody
Yeah.
knows that this is a very expensive sport to be in, and unless you're really making money from sponsorships or brand deals, like you're really kind of like toughing it out. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
you're in the trenches, right? And I just so happen to work and have a work lifestyle that affords me the feasibility and the flexibility to be able to do what I do. I am a coach. I
hmm
am an online trainer.
Right.
I'm an in-person trainer. I have celebrity clients. I have monthly retainers where I don't have to worry about somebody falling off and be like, oh, I only want to do one session or I only want to do 5 sessions. I get paid up front
hmm
for the month. So you know what I mean? It's a certain way that you structure your income for me that allows me the feasibility and flexibility to do it. Not everybody has that. Some people are working regular 9 to 5 jobs. Some people have families. Some people have kids that they got to get to daycare. You know what I mean? So the women that are doing this, we're doing it for the love. But you
hmm
can't convince me to go to a show that, number one, isn't really being promoted. Number two, the prize money is in the bucket anyway. It's in the basement, right? It's not even going
hmm
to cover my airfare and accommodations to get out there, and then it might not even be there next year. Who knows? Like, you can't twist my arm,
hmm
right, for the love of the sport when it's a whole lot different than it was back in the day.
Right.
You know what I mean? That money doesn't stretch as long as it did in the 90s, in the 2010s even. You know what I mean?
hmm
So I think we're just being strategic. I think that we're being smart. I think that specifically women bodybuilders, because of the intensity of the training and the
hmm
supplementation, the cycles, and the hormonal implications, like, we're at a whole different level of mindfulness that is needed to really participate in a healthy way, in a safe way. And in a way that can, like, mitigate what people are saying about women's bodybuilding. If you're out there and you're
hmm
blasting gear, then you're really just reinforcing what everybody's saying about women's body. Oh, they're too masculine. Oh, it's too,
Right.
you're too not feminine enough. Da, da, da. Well, that's what happens when you want me to keep showing up show after show after show for the love of the sport, for the love of the division,
hmm
and you're not giving me time to properly cycle down, properly go into like a health phase, properly,
hmm
fund everything that I need to do to prepare myself for the next year. But it's my fault because we're not showing up, or it's my fault because, oh, now we're too masculine, or it's my fault because now the criteria looks a little bit different because you're, as judges, they're judging what's in front of them, right? They're judging what's
Right.
showing up. So
You are in New Jersey, right?
I'm in New Jersey.
So your closest show would have been the New York Pro.
Closest show would have been the New York Pro.
And then what's after that?
Toronto actually isn't that far. Toronto, the last year that I did that, 2024, I actually drove. We drove up like 4 days early, and it was good because it was me, my mom, my brother, my partner. Like we were all in the car, and that definitely is more affordable than plane tickets to.
Right.
So we drove. It was a great time. It was a good road trip. And then the next show would probably be the Florida show, like Tampa and Atlanta. Those are the two next.
Yeah. And then Chicago's would have been close. No.
Yeah, Chicago's not that bad either. Chicago, I think, is only like a 2-hour flight.
Okay. So that being said, how long was your prep to get ready for a show? And I'm not trying to stand out. Every prep is different for each bodybuilder, but to be in the prime condition that the judges are looking for, is that number 18 weeks? Is it 20 weeks? Is it 25 weeks?
You're gonna get a different number for every person. For me, what I've learned in this prep, 24.
Okay.
And I think, and I think 24. I'm sitting here doing the math on my fingers, y'all. I still count on my fingers. Don't come for me. And I think namely because I didn't let myself get too fat in the off season. Right. I took off all of 2025. Not intentionally. That wasn't the plan. My plan was to compete 2025, but I actually wrecked my knee. And that kind of took me out for the year. And so through the rehab and through strengthening my legs back up and getting my body back into training shape, because when you blow your knee out, it takes you out of so many different movements and so many different, capabilities. So it really did require a lot of rehab in terms of like just being able to get back to the intensity of training that I do. So by like October, we were like, okay, we're ready to do it. Like I wrecked my knee in June. So all of June, July, August, September, all the way down to like October, November is when I was able to really be like, okay, I actually feel like capable of doing some leg, like I was doing leg stuff, but like real leg training I could do in October. So just getting back into it in October, you think October, November, December, all right, January, we got to pull the trigger because February, March, April, that's only 3 more months. So the fact that I like got ready in October, November, December, January is when we like pulled the trigger. February, March, April, that's a good 24 weeks. And I still wasn't the level of conditioning that I needed to be. I didn't bring that same package that I brought in Toronto that I brought to Triple O Dynasty. I knew I wasn't going to be ready. Like I just knew it. I just decided to do it because I wanted to show up for women's bodybuilding. And I tried to get as ready as possible. But things really started coming together those like 6 weeks after the show, and my body just started changing. And then now I'm like, okay, this is where we need to be for the show. So Toronto by far was my best level of conditioning, and we're still pushing it harder. So
to this point, you've been in prep how many weeks since you started? 24 to get ready for Toronto.
January is when we really pulled the trigger, but I was like cleaning stuff up, training with the mindset of prep in October of last year. So October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, 9 months.
Yeah. You know, my point is there's only 52 weeks in a year. And the Olympia is in September.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is it's a health risk. I mean, unless you're the top 3 already qualified, you know. And so now you look at how many years you've been doing it, and I think you're seeing a lot more pullbacks / retirements. Michaela Aycock, just to say one, but I mean, and then you look at if
Michaela, Asha, Monique Jones, like everybody in the last like 3 to 5 years. Back. Yeah, and I don't blame them. I mean, when you look at what your body has to go through mentally, physically, you know, emotionally, hormonally, and then you look at what you are benefiting from. Like, yeah, it's great to have
Mm-hmm.
that body. Yeah, it's great to have people like, commend you for your hard work. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know what? Maslow's hierarchy of needs is what? You need just those
Security.
basic needs met first, right?
Yeah,
Security,
that's physical
financial
need. Yeah.
security,
Yep.
physical health, like all these things first. You know what I mean? And it
Yep.
would be different if we were, these wellness girls or bikini girls or the physique guys, and we were kind of just laying
Mm-hmm.
around and, getting different sponsors,
More
left and right.
sponsors in those divisions. Yeah.
And you know what? And listen, the sponsors doing their job. Like, you as a sponsor,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be strategic with where you're placing your money. You got to make sure you're getting a return on your investment. I don't necessarily think that it's the sponsors issue. I don't think it's an issue with the sponsors. I think that
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to the promoters really driving home, the expectations and the standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Giving an opportunity for the sponsors to maybe do those special sponsorship, categories outside of what you want to do for sponsoring the show, because it's not
Mm-hmm.
about just sponsoring a division. Um, and then it's going to come down to, I think personally, it's going to come down to the league enforcing some standardization and regulations amongst the judges, because it gets to the point where, as a division, and this really can be even across the board with all the divisions, because a lot of people will say that even with bikini, like now with fit model coming out, it's like, well, how do you tell the difference between fit model and bikini? Like, how are we
Mm-hmm.
supposed to stop fit model from becoming the new bikini? You know what I mean? Like, it's only going to be a matter of time before they start pushing the edges of fit model, and then it's like, well, now they're getting
Yeah.
too hard, and now they're getting too lean, and now
Bikini
they're
light.
getting too separated. Right? It's like, and listen, let
Mm-hmm.
the league tell you, let the league tell it. It's just the natural progression and natural evolution. About it's not. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing that is natural about this is, where something remains unchecked, it will continue to grow and spread, and it will try and take over. So if you are leaving judging regulations or judging standardization or judging criteria not standardized, if you're leaving that unchecked, then it's always going to push beyond the boundaries. It's always going to push
Right.
beyond that red line. Think about when you get like stung by a bee, or if you have like a bite and they tell you, all right, well, put the little circle around the bite and we'll see if it spreads. Well,
Mm-hmm.
if you never put any medicine on that bite, or you've never medicated that circle around that bite, and that bug bite or that irritation is left unchecked and it's left to spread, it's going to continue to spread. But if you
Mm-hmm.
put those strongholds in place and say, listen, this is the criteria, and hold the judges accountable, I think that's major, because ultimately what's happening is you're going to have different division looks in every region. If this guy is the head judge for that show, and that girl is the head judge for that show, and in that region they
Mm-hmm.
judge like this, you're going to have a different look for every region. And I think that that's where things go and get a little bit out of control, because then now it's like, okay, well, over there they want really hard separated, over here they want feminine soft aesthetic, over
Mm-hmm.
here they're going to go more for, the shredded grainy look. They don't care, the femininity isn't a consideration. They don't care if your skin looks bad, or if your presentation isn't put
Mm-hmm.
together. They just want at some point, right? Even if it means we got to build something new, implement something new to standardize and regulate, then
Mm-hmm.
I think that's necessary.
Was very telling in the women's physique. Maybe not so much in women's bodybuilding, because you're only looking at, the judges can only see what's in front of them, and a lot of times they're only going to see 4 to 5. With the highest number, I think, still was at the triple O.
Mm-hmm.
That leads me into the next thing: how do you grow women's bodybuilding? So I look and I peek into the NPC shows, and I'm looking at the Pittsburgh show coming up, and those that will be awarded a pro card
Mm-hmm.
for women's bodybuilding. How do you grow it? Because there's only two ways that I see. One, girls move up from women's physique,
Mm-hmm.
or they come from the NPC.
Yeah.
So in the inventory, and that's something I would love to see the numbers. If the IFBB were to just run the numbers and put out the query and say, okay, we have X amount of IFBB women's bodybuilders pros, we got X amount of IFBB women's physique pros, just to know what's in the inventory.
Mm-hmm.
specifically women's bodybuilding, because they're not showing up to shows because they're not there. Whether they
Yeah.
retired, whether they step back, or
Or whether
they
they
don't want,
drop down. A lot
or
of
they
a
want,
lot of
they don't want to move up.
yeah,
Exactly, and that's a
yeah,
comment too. Those are at women's bodybuilding want to move down, and then those that need to, or would seem, because I'm not a judge, would need to move up aren't.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what's the fix in that when you look at those three areas?
Unfortunately, it's not going to be an overnight fix. I mean, I know most people know that, right? So I'm kind of saying that
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be an overnight fix. It's not going to be just a flip of the switch. This is a problem that has been going on for generations, and it's a problem that has been superseded by generations of the same exact decisions being made over and over and over again for women's bodybuilding. They're
Mm-hmm.
based women's bodybuilding, number one, off of a very subjective criteria of femininity. What is femininity? What does that look like? I feel
Right.
like that is always a crutch for people
Right.
to,
Not on
put
the scorecard, but
not
hey,
on the scorecard, right?
but
Like,
it
okay,
is.
so femininity, right? But then,
But it
like,
is.
you're telling me femininity, but then you're judging opposite of that because now you don't care that 56-year-old, woman with like leathery skin and I don't know, straw like hair and makeup's not put
Mm-hmm.
together. And I'm not saying that is a indicator of femininity, but if you're talking about
Mm-hmm.
presentation and femininity, then you're looking at this person and you're judging them based off of what they always judge. And this is just across the board, right? Most
Mm-hmm.
judges are going to judge muscularity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Shape. Shape is usually
Yep.
last, but muscularity, conditioning, and shape. Shape is usually last. They
Right.
typically will always go with muscularity first. How much muscle? Then they're going to look at the conditioning, right? Does the conditioning beat out
Mm-hmm.
muscularity? And then they're going to look at shape, which, unfortunately, they haven't really been taken into a lot of consideration with shape because I think that should be weighted a little bit more, especially for women's bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
Namely, because what it will take a female bodybuilder who's carrying 30 more pounds of muscle than your physique girls or your figure girls or wellness
Mm-hmm.
girls, what it's going to take for that bodybuilder to get into the shredded kind of conditioning is a lot more, and to maintain the muscle, like they're gonna have to do a lot more to get that condition and maintain the muscle
Right.
than might be recommended, health wise, physiologically speaking, right? It's gonna be like that's a lot. So there's definitely like a very thin line. You have to like toe the line and be
Mm-hmm.
mindful of what it's going to require. Um, but
So
because
when
of
that
all of
women's
these,
bodybuilder, go ahead. No, go ahead.
because of all of these factors, right? Um, Judging not being left unchecked, certain criteria being just very subjective and really no
Mm-hmm.
weight put onto it or understood about it. And then also just letting certain things happen at shows or certain promoters do certain things at shows. These
Mm-hmm.
are layers and layers and layers and years and years and years of decisions that have been made, strategically, even if it's not consciously, but it's strategically that has created the environment that it's created now. So it's going to take a very intentional undoing of those things, and it may require some really unique approaches, right? If it means, listen, you
Mm-hmm.
have to put this regulation, this standardization on judging. Oh, we've never done that before. It's never happened. It's never
Mm-hmm.
needed to be here before. Well, we're in a different era. Maybe now it needs to be,
Right. We need
implemented
to fix it.
because you have the women's physique, you have the wellness, you have the fit model. I remember when
Mm-hmm.
when I mean even figure came
Wow. Yes.
out, right? You have girls now in women's physique who wouldn't even be able to hold a candle to some of the figure girls. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
like when figure first came out, it was a very clear distinction between figure and women's physique. And now you have some figure girls that are mistaken for women's physique or even bodybuilders. You know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
was told to leave figure. I was told to jump up into women's physique because I was too
Right.
athletic. I was too muscular. Now you look at these girls, we could stand on the same side. We could stand on the stage side by
Mm-hmm.
side, and you'd probably have a hard time picking who was in which category.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I do believe that there's some standardization, some regulation that needs to be implemented. I think that's really the fix, because if it's not, it has to happen at the pro level. I don't believe in
Right.
like trickle down economics, but it has to happen at the pro level so that the amateurs coming up have a clear vision of where they can go, because that's why girls aren't going into women's bodybuilding now, because they're like, oh, I'm not big enough, or oh, I'm not hard enough, or oh, I'm not conditioned enough, or oh, I
Right.
don't want to have to be
You get that
that
big.
big.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to be that conditioned. So what is it? Now you have girls who aren't willing to take that risk hormonally, physically, psychologically, and they'll do the wellness. You know, Christina, she dropped down from women's bodybuilding, not to physique, but she dropped down to wellness.
Exactly. And it's gonna be interesting to see how she pans out. I don't think she's done a show yet, right?
No, she hasn't done a show yet.
No.
She hasn't done a
And
show
then
yet.
when you look at Shanique Grant, uh, dropped down to wellness from women's physique. After winning on Miss Olympia. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
it honestly, Glenn, and people might think that this is a cop out, but I really do believe it's going to literally have to be a culmination of new implementation strategies, right? New regulatory, you know, like codes, in a sense, like regulations, and expectations set. I don't think that it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna be fixed in a season. I don't think that it's gonna be fixed in 3 seasons. I feel like this is gonna have to be something where it literally is. It's a revolution of, you know, the divisions and the categories. Some people have said to put women's physique and women's bodybuilding together, take the women's physique off altogether, and just have like your heavyweight, lightweight, which I'm actually not opposed to. You know what I mean? Because I think
would it
that,
be any better? Would it be an improvement?
yeah, I think it would. I think it would be for the promoters. I think it would be less money for the promoters, because you wouldn't have to do 2 different sanction fees, right? I think that it would be more beneficial for the girls, because you're going to actually have a large, you know, you're going to have like a large class of people to compete with. You're not going to be going in like, oh, well, it's only 4 people here, 3 people here, you know, 7 people. Like the promoters are going to get more participation, right? So you're going to have, let's just take the new girl, not new girl, but Sarah. I can't remember her last name, but she just made the announcement she's jumping up to women's bodybuilding. The one that was in women's physique, and everybody was like, small but mighty, I think is her like straight name. I can't remember her last name, but it's Sarah something or other. She made the decision.
Bradley?
You know, she's jumping up. Bradley, I think it is Bradley.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at how she looked in women's physique, and I told her face to face at Toronto, don't let nobody come in here and convince you otherwise. You actually can stand up next to these women's physique girls. I think that you're very comparable. I think that you bring a different level of density and muscularity, but that's not your fault. That's the judges' fault. The judges have to regulate, right, and standardize what they are judging.
Right.
Because if I'm a judge and I can only judge what comes in front of me, well, every time I judge what comes in front of me, and I always push to the harder, the more dense, the more conditioned, the more shredded, the more separated, guess who's going to continue to show up in front of you? The girls watching that show are going to see what you rewarded, and they're going to come harder, more dense, more muscular, more peeled, and then you just keep pushing it further and further outside of, you know, the actual categorization of women's physique or wellness or bikini. Bikini wasn't always hard like it is now. Bikini was never as hard and separated as it is now. And they made that division specifically for that to be the case.
Yeah. But with her moving up to women's bodybuilder, I wonder how much of that was her decision and how much was judges' feedback.
Oh, I think it was all the judges' feedback. I think she always wanted to stay in women's physique. If you watched her little clip, you know, she loved, I mean, she started in women's physique. I think, you know, because of her size, her structure, you know, she was a smaller girl, but her body responded very well. She's always trained very hard. She does everything 110%. So it was no surprise that her body actually responded and exploded with the training, right? And now you're taking the brakes off and saying, oh, I don't have to, like, I can bring this level of conditioning and this size. Yeah, let's do that. So the judges' feedback for her was, you got to either size down, like downsize, or move up to women's bodybuilding. And she was never going to downsize. And she said that in her own words. She's like, that just was not even an option. So when they said downsize or move up, move up, I guess, is the natural choice.
Yeah. So when
But
you're
she could
dealing
have
with
already been, if there was no women's physique, she could have already been competing in women's bodybuilding. Even my good sis, America, I think it's
Mhm.
America or Marika. She's
Yeah,
in
Marika
women's
Jones.
physique. Marika Jones.
Mhm.
You just had her on the show. Was that last
Yep.
episode?
Yep.
She's in women's physique.
Last week.
Homegirl could definitely be in women's bodybuilding. The only reason
And,
why she's as lean as she is or as small as she is because she has to stay so lean. If she was able to
right.
fit up into that physique and build up into that, it would blow the wheels off. You know what I'm saying? But like if they did that and just
How tall are
combined
you?
us,
How tall are you?
5'7".
That's what I thought. And she's 5'5". But both y'all's physiques look very similar.
Yeah,
Um,
we've got. I think we've got that
that long
aesthetic,
torso. Yeah.
athletic
Yeah.
flow.
Definitely
Yes.
aesthetic. Yeah. And so it'd be interesting if she moved up um, to women's bodybuilding. But I guess the
Man,
question:
listen.
would you move
Some of the
back down to women's
feedback,
physique?
some of the comments I saw
Uh
on
huh.
some of the videos was like, "Oh, I don't understand why Sheena doesn't go down to women's physique." First of all,
Exactly. Yeah.
first of all, first of all, put some respect on my name, all right? I'm not going back down to women's physique
right.
because at the end of the day, like when you're standing on stage by yourself, everybody looks
Right.
like they fit the category. But if you were to put me on stage next to a women's physique girl, like I'm
Right.
just bigger. I'm just bigger. You know
You're
what I'm saying?
5'7", and I
I'm
don't think
five
people.
seven.
you
Right.
know. So
And Marika looks tall. When you look at her picture, she
yeah,
looks tall. She's 5'5".
I was saying that she looks really tall, and it just
Right.
maybe she way she presents, and it all does come down to posing.
Right.
But you got that long torso, beautiful. But yeah, she looks so much taller, you know. And I have not seen her in person on stage, but I have seen you, and I'm like, okay, yeah. So, and when we talk about it, femininity is not on the scorecard, but I think you embody that, because you do have a modeling background and people don't know about it. Yeah, you were a track athlete, but you've done a lot of modeling in your history as well. So
Mhm.
when you lead into it, if it takes 24, 25 weeks to grow muscle on a women's bodybuilding physique, and it all comes down to muscle maturity. And a lot of these girls just haven't grown into their physique that have just moved up. And the others, when it comes down to they don't want to move up, and the judges say, well, you either move up or you're out.
Mhm.
What can you do for them? Is their career just literally over?
No, they've got to listen. They've got to earn their stripes like everybody else. They got to take their
Right.
time. You know what I mean? Like I don't think a lot of people recognize how many years it really does take to be a true
Exactly.
seasoned
Are
competitor.
you
You'll
doing
have
that?
some outliers, but a good
Yeah.
10 years. You know what I mean?
You've been at it since what, 2011?
2011.
So yeah. And you started out figure?
I started out in figure. I did 3 shows my amateur year, so 3 NPC shows in 2011. Made the jump up to women's physique in 2012. I did the New York Metropolitan. They call it a different name now, but it was the New York Metropolitan. And that was a national qualifier. Qualified for nationals at that show. I won the overall in women's physique. Steve Weinberger called me down off stage afterwards. Like after the show was over, he called me down. He was like, hey, you. Hey, you. I'm walking by with my cake. I'm like, shoving my face in my cake. We're still in the auditorium. He was like, "You got a great look. You got a great look. This is the look we want for women's physique. You bring this physique, you bring this sharper package, you come in a little tighter, you're gonna be a pro before the end of the year." I said, well, I'll be damned. Okay, Steve.
Yeah.
Say less.
Yeah.
I went on to win my pro card at Junior Nationals. Now, if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have done a couple more national shows before accepting the pro card. Because I look back at that Junior National show and I'm like, girl, what was happening?
Yeah.
I was stringy. I was flat. It was a lot of stuff going on with that. I did not have a great prep, but I was prepping myself and turned pro. I had a couple people handling, like nutrition, and it would tell me, like, they'd be like my second set of eyes. I think the guy I was working with at the time, Steve Potenziano. I always loved saying his name because I just like how it sounds. But he was helping me with diet. You know what I mean? I didn't really know anything. I was still very green. So if I had to do over again, I probably would have done a couple more shows before accepting the pro status. But I jumped right into it. 2012 won my pro card. 2013 was my pro show. And I did a couple of shows, 2013, 2014. But then I was off the circuit. By 2014, I had this hip surgery. And I was out the circuit for 5 years. But that was a great time to like see how all of the different divisions really did look different. Figure really did look different than fitness or women's bodybuilding or even women's physique. The lines were very, very clear, and so to have that kind of experience where I was like, okay, I did figure, I did women's physique. Now I'm jumping up into women's bodybuilding. And all those years I was always training to build a physique, not just win a show, but it was like, okay, I got to bring out my shoulders. I got to bring out my back thickness. All right. I got to, bring out the detail in my legs, bring out the separation. Some people aren't doing that. Some people are really just training because they just want to win a show.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they think, oh, I just want to get my pro card, namely because they want to be an influencer or they already have a good amount of people on their social media. And by having that pro card status,
about if you didn't have social media, what kind of bodybuilder would you be? Yeah. And then, and to your point, how many out there are just influencers in love with the look, but not true bodybuilders to do what it takes to go win a show? I mean, you just like it everybody wants to be it, until it's time to show up because everybody fell in love with that look on Instagram and Facebook, those pictures, and then they go to the show and they get kicked to sleep. It's like, what happened?
Yeah. And or they don't know how to deal with that loss, right? Like if you're a competitor, you take that and you keep it pushing. Like you take
it will humble you. Yep.
Some of these kids who are coming up, and I'm not going to say kids because some of them are grown adults, but like some of the people coming up now, they want the show to win for the title, and they fall apart when it's like, oh, I brought my 150% best self, and I still lost. They're cheating, or they just wanted him because he's got a social media following. It's like, no,
they crash out. They crash out.
You just wasn't today, wasn't your day.
Maybe they believe something that their coach told them that wasn't true, or maybe they didn't listen to their coach. But
all of the above.
This is not for everybody, and you see that in regular sports levels from high school to college, and you ran track, and I played college football. Different world. You was a superstar in high school.
Oh yeah.
And like it's a whole new world once you do get that pro card and step on that stage, and so. That's a lot of false information that they believe. Maybe they don't have the right coach, or at the end of the day, you need to suck it up and like figure out what you're going to do because it's not for everybody. It's not.
It's not.
I'm a photographer, and everybody's a winner in my mind because I'm the quintessential participation trophy. Everybody looks good, and y'all need to take more photos in my mind. And then when you talk about promotion of women's bodybuilding, how many are truly promoting women's bodybuilding as an influencer? Because it's not hard to find your page, Andrea's page, Ashley Jones, and looking at your YouTube channels the way they blow up. Teresa Vancic, and I think Teresa Vancic could sell, ice to Eskimos. She's a great influencer, great marketer, and so, but everybody else, they just lift their weights, come to the show, go back in the closet. And you got to be out there, especially if you got a sponsor, because sponsors will drive how much you do a show as well. You may not be nowhere near that show, but I'm giving you X amount of dollars. You need to go do the show. What's your thought on that?
Yeah.
Because if I were to ask you right now, name me 10 women's bodybuilders, go. Name them.
Oh, I mean, you would literally start from the top. You would go with Andrea. You would go with Ashley. You would go with Angela Yo. You would go with Nadia Capitosto. You would go with Alina, not Alina. Why is her name stick? Barros. What's her name?
Alcyone?
No, not Alcyone. I mean, obviously she's one of them too. But Why is her name sticking on the tip of my tongue?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Hold on, now I gotta look it up because that's
yeah.
horrible. Hold on, hold on.
But that my point is this: you ask the fan that's out there, can you even name 10 women's bodybuilders? And they're like, you know, yeah,
Levina, Barrows. I knew her last
yeah,
name, but
bro, yeah,
Levina, you're my girl. Don't take this
yeah,
personally. But Levina, you know what I'm saying? Like all of these different people. This is my thing, though, right?
yeah,
And I know sometimes we bring up the promoters, and the sponsors, and the
hmm,
girls have to show up and they have to put themselves out there more. And I agree with that. I think that we do have
right.
to put ourselves out there, but we are under a very distinctly unique, different
Well,
lens
that was my
than
next point.
other people.
When they look at women bodybuilders marketing, they're thinking of the OnlyFans, the muscle mommy, and that's just not it. I
Yeah.
mean, those who market, they market it, but that's not the average fan. That's not the whole women's bodybuilder. Because I've
No.
seen so many guys that make that assumption, and then they like got their feelings of, dude, you should have known. Even
Hmm.
when they look at the Amazon site and say, well, dang, I thought you were gonna have this more and this muscle worship, and
That's not
dang,
it.
that's not
And
it.
listen,
I mean, that's not the
even
brand
coming
I want
from
to market.
my own personal lived experiences, there
Mm-hmm.
are way more of the general public out there that will come up to me and say, "Oh my God, your body is phenomenal. You must work
Mm-hmm.
really hard." Do you know, I was in Walmart yesterday or the day before yesterday and got stopped by three different people on three separate occasions in one trip to Walmart. And they were all women. They were not men.
Mm-hmm.
They were not Joe Schmoes. They were not
Right.
weirdos or creepers. They were women. And they came up to me in the most genuine nature and was like, "Oh my God, your body's amazing. What do you have to do to get your quads like that? Oh my
Right.
God, you look so healthy. Like you look so fit." And that's the general public
And
that we
feminine.
should be
Yeah.
marketing to. The
Yep.
marketing is not the muscle worship guys or the session guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not the general public. I was in an Uber and my Uber driver is asking me for tips because like, "Oh, I see you do like weightlifting. How do I
Mm-hmm.
get rid of my belly?" And this is a guy. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's like you have general public, the regular, degular, everyday people who are coming up to us as women bodybuilders, the people
Mm-hmm.
that you say are not marketable, the people that you say the general public does not like or does not find attractive. And I'm living this experience every day, and they're coming up to me saying how much they respect my dedication or my hard work or how inspiring to
Right.
them I am. They don't know me from a can of paint. They don't know I'm a professional bodybuilder. So don't tell me that we're not marketable. Don't tell me that the general public,
Right.
that we're not palatable, because that's what the general public, they are empowered by us because we are so far from the norm that it actually gives them a reason to believe something so far
Right.
fetched that they could have muscles like that they could be so fit, that they could be in such good shape. So there is a
Exactly.
market out there for us that is not going to rely on just the OnlyFans or the
Right.
sessions or the muscle worship. Like I think that if promoters really put their money where their mouth is and say, "Look,
Mm-hmm.
this is how we're going to do the show, flat rate. Like if you're going to be a diamond sponsor, you're giving this amount of money. If you're going to be a gold,
Mm-hmm.
a platinum sponsor, you're giving this amount of money. You don't get to pick where that money goes
Right.
unless you want to give a separate investment to specifically sponsor wellness or to specifically
Right.
sponsor the
Like a
awards or
wolf
whatever the
pack.
case may be."
Yeah. And then I was just trying to find the sponsor out there that's going to market to women's bodybuilding. Because no, once you give money to the promoter, you can't tell him where to put that money or her where to put that
Right,
money.
right.
How would you market to the general public? What can we do to market to the general public? Because on the other side of the coin, it's like, well, it's just too easy to go over here, show some TNA and get that, as opposed to go out there and look
Yeah,
for a hardcore market. Stop doing the
yeah,
easy. Guys do it too, women do it too. But how do you
sure.
find that? Because this can be a lifelong sponsor for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that it's going to come down to consistency and vulnerability. I think we as competitors, we as women bodybuilders, have to put ourselves out there. We have to take that leap of faith and say, "Okay, I'm gonna
Hmm.
consistently post to my YouTube. I'm gonna consistently post
Right.
to my social media. I'm gonna go live on my TikTok." I
Hmm.
only just now started this in the last like 6 months, like since October of last year. My TikTok has really taken off. I'm building out my YouTube. I have a media editor who's going to be doing all of my videos now. Like I'm really taking it seriously now, where I'm not just trying to put random stuff out there and just like, oh, just post whatever. Like, I do want to build, my channel so that it can show people what bodybuilding is like, women's bodybuilding, even outside of bodybuilding, in our regular
Right.
everyday lives, right? To give them that insight. A lot of us just aren't doing it. I know
Right.
Chelsea has a page. I know
Yeah.
Andrea has a page. Like, I know a handful of us have a page, but for as many talented athletes
But
as there are
Ashley
out
played.
there, I think that there are so many people, especially young competitors coming up. I think there are so many of them who are looking for our pages, looking for somebody
Right.
to identify with, that it really is up to us to put ourselves out there to like, and you gotta be willing to take that risk. You're gonna get people who are gonna say some crummy things about you. You're gonna have some
Yeah.
people who are gonna be haters. You're gonna have
Regardless.
some people out there who are gonna be just mean and nasty. And I think that we have to, like, unfortunately, it comes with the territory. I think we have to be willing to take that risk for the greater good, because it's going to require us and the promoters and the judges to really build that pipeline of female bodybuilders. Otherwise, it's not feasible. Like, if I'm an
Yeah.
up and coming competitor and I'm saying, oh, I want to get into bodybuilding, I'm not really seeing a lot of women bodybuilders celebrated. I'm not seeing a lot of women bodybuilders on these apparel lines. There's no women bodybuilders on Dark Sport or
Right.
Young LA or Gymshark. You have all these like
Yeah.
bikini,
Young LA. Wow. Yeah.
you have all of these different style of athletes, right? You don't have
Mm-hmm.
women with muscle, really, women bodybuilders. So to a young up and coming competitor, it doesn't seem feasible. It doesn't seem worth it. You know what I mean? Unless they really are just
Right.
on the fringe and they're like, I just want to be a bodybuilder because I just love it.
Right.
But for the
I just love
most
lifting
part,
heavy stuff.
a lot of these people are getting into it because they want to be on social media and they want to make it to the Olympia and they want to be part of that
Exactly.
history. But the pipeline has dwindled because
Yeah.
you don't get a lot of prize money at shows. You only have 10 shows maybe to compete at
Yeah.
in a year.
I think that's what women's
So
bodybuilding had this year. Yeah.
it's a problem that has sort of it has 3, 4, 5 different outlets that is feeding the problem, right? And it's not just one thing. It's not just women bodybuilders are masculine. It's not just promoters are pulling shows. It's like the culmination of all of these different factors that don't seem really intense alone. Like, by themselves, they don't seem like a big deal, but put together and layered together, it's what's unfortunately, it's what it has been laying such a heavy burden on the women's bodybuilding division.
Right. And it takes time to grow muscle. It's not in the inventory. You grow it from NPC or women's physique.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say all that to say this: is women's bodybuilding going to become extinct?
I don't think so. I think there's so many of us out there who are willing to really put time and effort into it. I know when I finish competing, even if that's in the next like couple of years, my main goal is to stay active in the division, in bodybuilding, in the sport, as a commentator, as a media
Right.
mogul. I mean, like, there's so many ways that we can help feed the division, and a lot of us already are. You have Eunice from Bad Rap, who's already promoting and sponsoring and feeding into and leaning into the division because she refuses to let it die. You have an Andrea Shaw who refuses to let it die. Women's bodybuilding and figure were the only 2 pro categories at the Triple O Dynasty, and that is a growing show. You know what I mean?
Right.
Linda Murray, you know what I mean?
Atlanta.
Listen, legendary Miss Olympia title holder. She refuses to let women's bodybuilding die, and so she has it at the Atlanta Super Show. Toronto, our promoters over at there in Toronto, they refuse to let it die. So I think when we show it the way that we've been showing, Alina Popa, exactly. So it's like you have these bodybuilders, you have especially the women bodybuilders who are taking it into their own hands and taking responsibility for it and rising to the occasion. I mean, I think that's going to continue to be the standard. I think that's going to continue to be, what really helps build and cultivate this next generation of competitors.
Well, I certainly hope the conversation continues, and I certainly hope that Jake Wood continues to do what he's doing. I'm certainly going to do all that I can, and we'll see what happens. But going into next year, these same conversations have got to actually happen and be more of a call to action where you guys sit down with promoters and vice versa. Like I said, it doesn't have to be on camera, but it needs to be like a women's bodybuilding summit. hosted by the IFBB, hosted by Jake Woods or Linda Murray or whoever. But like, hey, it's time to
I
talk.
think
Get
when we get
real.
the right people in the right
Mm-hmm.
rooms with those decision makers, I think that's going to be the thing. The
Right.
summits, the conferences, the
Mm-hmm.
roundtables, honestly, those are all, they sound really nice, but
Yeah.
they aren't
Cut the closing shows and
impactful.
let's have a real talk. Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, no, I want you to be like a Eunice. If you're an apparel
Mm-hmm.
company and you want to see women's bodybuilding at more shows, put your money where your mouth is. All right. Now,
Right.
and guess what? We show up. The same way that the call to action was put out for the Triple O, we showed up. For the Toronto Pro, we
Mm-hmm.
showed up. You know what I mean? Tampa, I know a lot of girls are showing up because of the fact that we reached
Right.
out to our followers and they gave of their own hard earned money to bring us to Tampa.
Right.
You know, I'm putting the call out to action now to all of the women's bodybuilders to show up for Linda's show. The Toronto, the Atlanta's Pro Super Show should be,
Mm-hmm.
women bodybuilders should be coming out in troves for that show. That should be the biggest women's bodybuilding show aside from like the
You
Rising
should.
Phoenix, aside from the Olympia.
Yeah.
Because of how long standing it's been, because it's Linda
Yeah.
Murray show, because she's always had us at the forefront. It has never been an afterthought. So I'm putting the call to
Mm-hmm.
action out for all of my competitors, my my colleagues. Show up for Linda's show. We didn't have to pay a
Mm-hmm.
sanction fee like we did for for Tampa. No shade, no
Mm-hmm.
shade, no tea,
Yeah.
no tea.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Show up to the people, to the promoters who are really putting out for us. And I think that that's where it's really that's where we can really start to make an impact, and show people what we're about.
If you want to say a triple crown, well, you got Atlanta. Well, you got Tampa, 31st of July through the 1st or 2nd of August. And
Mm-hmm.
then Linda Murray, 8 and 9 August. And then, of course, Wings of Strength, which was an invitational. What do you take from those not applying to the Wings of Strength or those not accepting the invitation? Because and it's been said, well, I'm only going to do the shows where I have a chance to win. When I look on there and I see Pittsburgh and no Natalia Coelho, okay, I'm going to do it. Likewise, I look at Wings of Strength and knowing that Andrea is going to do it, why am I even going to do the invitation? Because I got
Right.
no chance of winning. Which says a lot too, because then why are you even trying to go to the Olympia?
Uh-huh.
Then why are you even competing? You don't think you can beat none of the top 5, right? Why are you even doing this at all? But your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the invitational, I think that should be in a class all by itself in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, you still have to be strategic when you're putting it into your plans and your training protocol
Mm-hmm.
and all the timelines, things like that. But with the Rising Phoenix, especially now that they put the title back on the show, right? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's a whole nother conversation.
But no cards,
It's a
no
whole
super
nother
cup. Yeah,
episode we could
I
have.
got you. I got you. And,
But
and I'm gonna get you out of here. I really appreciate your time.
if
But
nothing
when you
else,
look at it,
but for nothing else, but for them
mhm,
putting the title back on the show, the prestige back on the show, winning the
yeah,
crown of the Rising Phoenix, I think that's why a
yeah,
lot more girls showed up this year versus last year,
yeah,
and now they actually know and they have a heads up that there's 3 spots up for the Olympia, which last year
right,
they tried to hang their hat on that, and be like, why wouldn't you show up? You had three spots to the Olympia. You didn't put
right,
that in, but for the week before the show. Nobody was
right.
going to be able to like all of a sudden drop everything and prepare for a week out.
Hmm.
That you didn't make that announcement until like a week or 2 out from the show that, oh, now the
Right,
top 3 are going to be automatically qualified for the Olympia. So like now people know that. Now they got like 12, 15 girls
right.
that got invited. So yeah.
But if you're a competitor and your mindset is, I don't think I can beat her. I'm only gonna pick a show that, okay, I'm counting on numbers to be less at this particular show to have a chance to win. That's the wrong mindset, wouldn't you say? Because I mean, you're already beaten before you get to the stage. You're already beat.
I'm a little torn on that because I think that it
Yeah,
makes sense in terms of strategy. If
I
you are
do. Hmm.
a newer athlete, you're kind of green, you're not
Right,
beating Andrea Shaw. But
right.
if you go to a show that maybe has, some of your people who aren't so well known, you still get the
Hmm.
reps, you still get the
Right.
opportunity to be in front of the judges. So I think that there is something to be said about strategizing which shows you go to. But if you are a veteran competitor, you've done
Hmm.
this, you've been in the mix, I think you need to show up point blank period. Point
Right.
blank period. Now, the only reason why my name isn't on that list is because Unfortunately, I wasn't able to, not that I wasn't able to apply, but I didn't apply because the timeline wasn't right. My mom,
Mm-hmm.
and I've mentioned this before. My mom has, been sick over the years. She's doing very well, but she had a liver transplant, and now she needs a kidney transplant. And it's just a natural progression of how things go. When you get a liver transplant, it's very hard on your kidneys, on your renal system, and that timeline was actually set up to where a lot of tests were going to need to be taken. So I knew I wasn't going to be available, but some things have changed. So I don't know. I may need to request a special invite. I might need to reach out to Wings of Strength and see if they'd be open to me applying for a late invitation, because I do think that it's a prestigious show. I think it's a wonderful show.
Yeah. Well, wishing your mom all the best. We're gonna close out. We're gonna turn to you. What is the next show? And you hinted around, and we've talked. What is the next show/shows that we're gonna see Sheena Ohlig at?
Yeah, definitely the Atlanta Pro Super Show. Definitely excited to go down to Linda's show. This will be my second year doing the Atlanta show. A slight chance that I might jump into Tampa. It kind of just depends on how things work out over the next couple of weeks.
Right.
And I would love to be able to get into the Rising Phoenix. If that's possible, then I would definitely do that. And by that point, your girl needs to be on the Olympia stage. So the Olympia needs to be the next.
And it's all about location.
Wait. Yeah. That's what it was. Remember the show? I was like, at the beginning, I was like, why can't I think of the name? It just popped on my tongue. The Steve Carr Classic. They put in.
That's in November.
He put in women's bodybuilding. Yeah.
It's right at the end of Olympia being the end of the season, but there's a quick qualification you could get
for the next year.
In the next year if you stay in prep a few more weeks.
Yeah.
But it's a little longer because last year the Olympia was in October. This year's the last week of September, and that show I think is not till the first week of November. The Carr Classic.
Yeah. So depending on how things go this year, I would definitely jump into that one, because I wanted to do it last year, but because of my knee, I wasn't in a position to do it. But like depending on how things go this year, I definitely would jump in that too.
Well, I guess another question would be, what's your coach saying, Dr. Trey Hodge? I mean,
Trey.
Who's doing the pitch count? And I love your comment about you got to get the reps. That's competitive. You got to get the reps to see where you are. What's he saying? What's the pitch count? You mentioned a little bit about how you feel.
Yeah.
What's the real story?
Trey, honestly, Trey's always been the most supportive coach, the most down to earth, real, like keeps it real, keeps it $150. He'll tell you like it doesn't look like you're on track. I don't know what's going on. We didn't do something right. He always catches if something's like not quite right. He kind of just has this sixth sense. But he also coaches you to your degree of need. And I've never been a very needy competitor. I've never needed my coach to handhold me or check in on me every day. Or, it's like, give me the plan and let me cook.
Right.
He gives me the plan. He gives me the training. He gives me the diet. He gives me the supplements, the protocol, the cycle. And he just lets me cook. And then we check in. He'll give me the feedback. If it's good, if it's bad, if it's indifferent, whatever, we make the adjustments and we go. This year has been different in that there was just a different level of fire, like in my gut, and I feel like things kind of just clicked in a different way, where the conditioning was coming through, and like it was like everything was firing on all cylinders. It just felt like the plan was so fluid. It just felt like everything was working the way that it should have been, and I wasn't forcing it. In years past, I was always grinding and hustling and like forcing it and like forcing the cardio and forcing the training and forcing through sickness and forcing through exhaustion. It was like this year was just something different. You know what I mean? I don't know if it was, the moon in Gemini or something like that. I don't know. We just now finished this crazy orbital astrological orbit that doesn't happen for every 144 years. So yeah. No, Trey is good. He's so, he's so encouraging. He's so inspiring. And he, like, with this last package we brought, he knew it from 6 weeks out. He was like, yeah, this is the best package we've brought ever. So whatever we're doing, just keep doing it.
Sheena, I always appreciate you coming on. Wishing you all the best. Uh, See you in Atlanta, which is going to be a
Absolutely.
big show. I don't know when y'all have to sign the paperwork within
A
24
week.
hours, a
No,
week. Okay,
they give you a week.
that's
You
still
got it.
early.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean? So yeah,
I got a
still
little time.
suggesting
We'll
that.
see what happens.
But
We'll
I
see
know,
what
yeah,
happens.
it still got a little time. So I'm really looking to see what those shows, at least from the stateside, because I know possible way we get overseas. But
Hmm.
everybody's looking at Tampa because it was the show that was not supposed to be,
Hmm.
until uh, everything got straight with the GoFundMe and whatnot. And shout out um, to everyone that promoted it, that gave and whatnot,
Yeah,
um, and convinced Tim Gardner to do it. And then of course Linda Murray. I mean, she is it. Um, 8-time Miss Olympia. So when a telling sign is always the first show of the year, the Triple O. How are they going to support Andrea? And then of course how they going to support Linda coming up here in Atlanta. So
yeah.
just got to keep grinding. But thanks again as always for coming on. I really appreciate you. And talk soon. Keep me posted on everything.
Will do. It's always a pleasure, Glenn. It's always so good to talk to you. Thanks so much for having
All
me
right.
on.
Of course, Sheena. Take care. Sheena Ohlig on her way to the Atlanta Pro, the Tampa Pro, possibly, and of course, Wings of Strength. Maybe she'll get in and get the invitational bid for that. Uh, I appreciate everyone's support. All the sponsors that supported AmazonFitMag.com. Make sure that you go out and get you a copy of Amazon's Fitness Magazine. Sheena Ohlig on the cover. This is in 2024, but get you the magazine. It's right there. Go out to AmazonFitMag.com. Click on your copy and order the one that you want. And of course, Sherry Priami. So that's two basically confirmed. Sherry Priami and Sheena Ohlig at the Atlanta Pro. We'll see once the list comes out. I'm hoping that show keeps growing as well as the Tampa, because those are the two stateside shows left, besides Wings of Strength going into the Olympia, and then of course Alina Pope and all those that are overseas. So excited, excited. I'm Glenn Young, owner of Amazon's Fitness Magazine. Celebrate the female physique. Subscribe to Amazon'sFitMag.com. As always, thanks for the support. If you're a subscriber, if you're not, why not? Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. For all those that are getting me up and say, hey, can you go to this show, go to that show? Hey, if you sponsor, yeah, I'll go to the show. But, it's not a given that I can get up and just go. I always try to attend at least two shows every year, two pro shows and maybe two NPC shows. So we'll see how it goes. But thanks for everyone's support. All those that came out in the chat, I didn't forget about you, saw your comments. And again, support women's bodybuilding. If you're the person out there that wants to be part of it, hey, go to a show. There's nothing like sitting up front and seeing things going on. Till next time, we'll talk soon. I'm Glenn Young. Celebrate the female physique and subscribe to Amazon'sFitMag.com. Of course, the podcast is brought to you by GPS Photography and Video. Why photography and video? Because a photo's worth 1,000 words, video's worth 1,000,000. GPSPhotoandVideo.com. We'll see you next time.